Coming up on episode 152 of Create If Writing, I'm sharing how to successfully self-publish on Amazon.
I can't go back to sleep, it's almost light. These restless thoughts have kept me up again tonight.
Hello, creatives, and welcome to Create If Writing. This is the podcast for you, a writer, blogger, or creative who wants to build an online platform without being smarmy. And I'm your host, Kirsten Oliphant. I am so glad that you are listening today, and I'm going to be doing a deeper dive into successful self-publishing on Amazon. If you listen to episode 150, just 150, I shared how I niched down, and kind of that post really should follow this one. This is more of an introductory post, and I'm going to talk about that one as well, but I kind of had it already done. So I went ahead and released that one first, but that gave you an idea of my very first year self-publishing as a fiction author on Amazon. So maybe listen to this one if you haven't heard that one yet, and then you can go back because I will mention that and it is important. But I want to share with you guys how I went from basically last January making $30 on Amazon until January 2019 it ended up being $8,600. So $8,600. In the original post in episode 150, I talk about how it was over 9,000. And it was, but that was tracking it until Amazon actually updated how much they pay out for page reads. So I'm in Kindle Unlimited, which means people can buy a subscription to Kindle Unlimited and read any books that are on there, and authors get paid by the page. And that's how I make most of my income on Amazon. So for me, those page reads, Amazon announces after a month is over how much they're going to pay you. So the accounting kind of software that I have uses the month before to kind of estimate. So January went down, and so it was estimating what I had made based on December's payout. So if you're lost, it's okay. Come on back in. I just wanted to explain why and be really transparent. In episode 150, I talk about making over 9,000, but it ended up being 8,600. Still great going from 30 to that. Really, my goal was 10,000. So I was disappointed, but I can't be too disappointed. I'm really happy. And I want to share the strategies and things that I did to get there. I do also touch on this in episode 150, and I'm going to do a deeper dive into these strategies because I think that they require that, and each one kind of requires its own bit so that you can get more information, because I like to give you guys realistic and practical things that you can do. So if you want these show notes where you can find links and things I'm talking about, you can go to createifwriting.com/152. So the first thing I want to say is a caveat, and that is to say that there isn't one way to do things. And I'm going to share some of the things that worked for me. They may not work for you. They may not work for your genre. In general, I think these are solid strategies. They're not quick flash in the pan tactics that no one's been using. A lot of these are the classic things that a lot of independent authors are using and have been using for years. So there aren't any surprises in here, but this is going to look different for everybody. If you're writing in a genre where readers don't read as much, so I'm writing in clean romance. Romance readers read voraciously. They are whale readers. They read a ton. If you're writing in a genre where people don't read as much, you may not have this level of success. You may find yourself in a different level of success. You may want to have different goals. So it just really depends. But there's also 3 things you really need before you can actually self-publish successfully. And those 3 things are a well-written book, a solid professional book cover, and a clear genre. And these aren't really in order. I'm just picking all 3 because they all tie together. So the first thing is a well-written book. Now, we all know there are books that are terrible that have had great success. But here's the thing. Even those terrible books, maybe they're written really poorly. The reason that they often found success was because there was a story in there that resonated with readers. Maybe it was put together in a poor package and that person really can't use grammar, but they created a story and characters that resonated. And so generally speaking, you have to have a well-written book. You have to have a story that connects with the audience. But again, I want to just say that we all know that there's sort of exceptions to the rules. But if you're trying to be successful, you want to start with a well-written book. It's, kind of basic there. But Definitely start there. And then book covers. And I've mentioned this before in previous episodes, but you guys, we just can't make our own book covers unless you're a graphic designer and expect that they're going to stand up on Amazon next to professionally designed book covers. They aren't. It really matters. And I do talk about some specifics on book covers in episode 150 when I talk about niching down and how for one of my books, I use this example. I had a guy, if it was a billionaire book, and the guy on the cover, because that's what you do for billionaire books, and he had a t-shirt on, and when I changed him to a suit, he sold more copies. And so last week in episode 151, I shared how my launch was going poorly, and I changed my book title and cover to better suit the book and the genre, and it's already selling much better just from changing that one thing. It had a bride on the cover, and I focused on the aspect of the main character wanting to marry a rock star. And so when I changed it, the focus was on the rock star, and I have a guy on the cover now. And so that has increased sales. Book covers matter. It doesn't matter whether you like it or not. You have to just accept it and move on. So the sooner you accept it and stop fighting against it, the better off you'll be. And these don't have to cost hundreds and hundreds of dollars. If you're doing something like fantasy, a lot of times those do require better covers. Romance is a little bit cheaper, but there are sites out there that you can find that will have covers that you can get that are not crazy expensive. And I'll link to a few of those in the show notes. And the third thing is a clear genre. And this is going to kind of go along with a well-written book because I think they're together but separate. But when you're writing your book, you really need to be clear about it. So I don't know if you've had this happen before or this has been you before, but you're talking to somebody about their book and you say, what kind of book is it? And they can't describe it in a sentence. Or they say something like, well, it's kind of like a sci-fi thriller and a romantic comedy. And if those like happened in a fantasy world like Lord of the Rings, already it's confusing. Okay. And we write like that sometimes, especially if you're writing for the love of writing and you have a story that just happens to be a sci-fi thriller with a romantic comedy in a fantasy world, that might be your love. And that's great. It's not going to sell well on Amazon or anywhere else really for that matter. It's going to be really hard because it's really hard to position that book in the market and it confuses readers and they don't know what to expect. So reader expectations are huge. So you have to have that clear genre. And this is where I really get into that in episode 150. So again, earmark that, go back and listen if you haven't. So once you have a well-written book, solid cover and a clear genre, it's time to think about self-publishing and marketing your book. And I want to say too, when you're doing this, the first book you write is not going to sell as well as your future books because what's happening as you write each book is that you are growing readers, you're growing readership as you go. You're getting better also at your craft. And when you have a great third book, people then will go back and say, oh, there's a second, first book. I'll go read these too. Now, that's assuming it's not a series. So writing in a series is also really helpful. Okay, the things that I did, I'm going to list them out and then kind of go into more detail. So the first thing is that I published quickly. I also wrote books in a series. I consistently grew my newsletter while writing and doing other marketing and launching. I set up newsletter swaps with other authors in my genre, and I paid for promotions through other email newsletter services. So those are the things that I did that basically led to the success that I've had. And I'm going to go into a little more detail, and then I'm going to have breakdowns on these in separate posts because I think it's really important to get that. So the first thing is publishing quickly. And I will say this is not for everyone. However, I didn't know that I could do this. This was not a skill I thought I possessed. My very first book took 2 years to write. I thought that was normal for books, and for a lot of people it is. And again, depending on your genre, it might be. But here's the thing. I'm writing clean romance. You know that there's a couple, they fall in love, something kind of breaks them apart, they get back together, there's a happily ever after. So that's romance. There's a pretty clear structure. These novels are typically about 50,000 words, though my last one was 80,000. These are a little bit simpler to write than some of the other kinds of things that maybe are less formulaic. But I didn't know that I could write them that fast. And the very first clean romance I wrote took 3 months. The second one took about 2, and then the third one took 2 weeks. Right now I'm averaging, depending on what I'm up to, between 2 to 3 weeks, maybe a month to write a book. And that's start to finish kind of editing and everything, but editing is hard because you I have a proofreader. I edit quickly because I'm usually pretty solid about my story. And so mostly I'm not doing ton of edits. I'm having a proofer and that's it. And beta readers. So I do write fast. This may not be for you, but if you're telling yourself that you can't do this, maybe you're like me and you actually have this like untapped power to write quickly and you don't know about it because you think you can't do it. I 100% was not trying to write quickly. I had a story that I couldn't get out of my head and I wrote it and it took 2 weeks. And then I was like, oh, I can write a book in 2 weeks. And I think that book was actually around 60,000 words. So once I realized I could do it, then I knew it was possible. I don't make that my goal every time, but I know how quickly I can write, and that's what I do. I don't pay attention to word counts. I do look at my word counts, but I just write. And so that's how it worked for me. So it may not work for you, but a lot of times people will say the best marketing that you can do is to write another book. And this really is true in the sense that you're creating what's called a backlist of other books that people can buy. So when you have sales stagnating on your first couple books and you write a new one, then your readers or new readers even who find you are going to read that book and then go back and read the others that you've written. And so that really is helpful. And publishing quickly, I published about a book every 6 weeks, kind of from May on of 2018. And this also, just for the record, does not mean poor writing. I actually think that my books are more cohesive when I write quickly. Yes, there can be tons of mistakes, but whether you're writing quickly or slowly, everyone should hire a proofreader. There are mistakes either way, whether you're fast or slow. I don't think I write any more cleanly when I'm writing slow. So I will just say that. Either way, I need a proofreader to find my mistakes. But when I'm writing quickly, I feel like I'm right there with the characters. I'm much more attuned to the story. And I've actually had readers say to me, I think that your books that are written faster are better. And they're noticing that same cohesiveness. So that's one of the things I did. That was part one. The second is writing in a series. And for romance, this looks a little bit different. But when you're writing in a series, what this does is it gives your readers somewhere to go. That's very, very clear. So when I've written a couple books that are standalones, that they don't fit together with any other stories I've written, they don't sell as well. And that's what I've found consistently through the year. So even after I've published 4 and 5 books that have done well, I published a book that was not in one of my series. It didn't sell as well. And that, I think, was another factor with the book that I just relaunched and recovered and retitled, was that it was not part of one of my other series. And so I think that has an impact. And when you're writing in romance, your series really aren't going to they won't be things that have to be read in order. Typically, they're going to be standalones because romance has that happily ever after. So you can't then have the next book, one of the, people in the couple dies and so they have to find someone new. That would not work for a romance reader. So typically, you're writing a series that is connected by a theme. So I have billionaire books and there are billionaires and I call it the billionaire surprise. So there's always some kind of surprise, like the person doesn't know the other person's a billionaire or there's something in there that's a secret, but it's not hard and fast. Like my readers might be like, oh yeah, there are surprises in there, but they're not really reading, like it's not that huge of a plot point. So basically they're tied together because they're billionaires. I have another series where it takes place on a beach and it's a made up beach that a lot of the characters are interconnected. And so I weave those into the stories and I'm actually going to weave 2 of my series together because my billionaire books are selling well, my beach are not. So I'm going to take the first in the beach series and retool it, tweak it a little bit because it actually doesn't need that much. And I'm going to make that part of my billionaire series instead and make it a connector. And so it's going to be the Sandover Beach Billionaire so that the next book that you want to read after finishing that billionaire book is I want to send people to my beach town to read that series. So having these series really helps and having things connect. And so sometimes I will have characters connect and different series connect and things like that so that readers have something to grasp onto. But series do sell really well. And so that's something else that I utilized. Another is writing in a hot trope. So when I did find out, when I started out, I was writing this beach series and I wrote my very first billionaire book in 2 weeks. I hadn't meant to write a billionaire book. It just happened. And so I thought, well, I wrote it, so I'll go ahead and release it because I was kind of stuck in my second beach book, not sure where it was going to go. I get stuck sometimes. And so I went ahead and released the billionaire book. And consistently from that point on, my billionaire books outsell my other books. I think last time I looked, it was something like 4 or maybe 8, somewhere between 4 times as many to 8 times as many. copies as my other books. It's still me writing them, and it's not that all my other books were released first. I've released other books in there. Again, some of them weren't in series, some of them were other kinds of books, but again, they just do not sell as well. When I do promotions on my beach books or the other standalone books, they don't do as well. People want to read billionaire books right now, and I keep hearing people say they're sick of them, and then I put one out and I sell tons and tons of copies, so I'm going to keep writing them as long as they're selling well. But writing in a hot trope or a hot, some kind of hot theme or whatever it is that people are really buying. And that takes studying what the market is doing on Amazon. Again, I talk a lot about that in episode 150, but that was one of the things that I did that I think really helped me find success. The fourth thing is that I consistently grew my newsletter. So all the while, and if you're a longtime listener of the show, I love email. I'm an email nerd. So I already knew a lot of strategies and tactics for growing an email list. Slightly different for fiction. But I actually found that it was faster to grow. And I did this through giving away books, giving away short stories, using group author promotions on things like Book Funnel or Book Cave or Story Origin, where you're banding together with other authors in a similar niche, putting all your books up for free on one page, and then everyone's sharing it with their audiences. And so you're getting in front of more people. And I also did paid promotions and giveaways through Book Sweeps and a site called Authors XP, where they will do a giveaway or some other kind of mailing list builder, again, by genre, and you pay and you end up giving away like one copy of your book to a person who wins, and you get the email list of people who entered. And they do know about this, and the companies that I use are all on the up and up with using the sign up and GDPR and all the kind of legal things that you want, because you don't want to buy an email list, and that's not what this is. But you want to actually, this is really investing in targeted subscribers, and people are very aware of what's happening. And it's made very clear that you're getting on the list. So all the while that I was writing and marketing and launching and doing all that, I continued. I didn't do necessarily one list growth activity a month, but maybe one every 2 months to continually grow my list. So I went from 0 to, I think I'm over 4,000, and I'm doing 2 promos right now. So I think by the end of the month, I'll be at 5,000 subscribers, which is fantastic and exciting. And actually, what I've also found is with fiction, especially with this list, my open rates are much closer to 40 to 50%, even as I've grown, and my click rate is higher. So this again may be because romance readers read like crazy, but people are opening and reading. So in addition to growing my newsletter, I also tried to grow my engagement and try to write good content. I tried to be inviting. I like to have people hit reply. So sometimes I would ask a question and I would get 20 to 30. I think the last time I did this, I got 50 responses, and it took like a whole afternoon to respond to the emails back that I got from people. But I want to build a list of fans who buy books and they want my books. And every so often I do have people, especially because I'm growing my list through free things, I do have people that will email me like, man, I wish I could afford your books. And I'm like, man, I wish you could too. I don't fall into the trap of giving people free books when they ask me or tell me that they can't afford it. Funny story. I actually got an email from a reader, and I have a lot of older readers, and this was from an older reader, and she said she was in a nursing home and that what she would love is a print copy. She actually asked for print copies of all my books. And she said that, I'm in a nursing home and I'm happy to share with all the other ladies in the nursing home. And I thought, that sounds really sweet. I love that idea of all these people in the nursing home reading my books and discussing. And, but I was still a little bit, I don't know. I just had a hesitation about it. And so I actually posted what she sent in one of the writer groups I'm in. And 3 people said the exact same woman emailed them, and it was like literally word for word. So yeah, maybe this is really an old lady in a nursing home. I did look up the address and it looks like it goes there. But it also might be an enterprising older woman who is like selling these books back to Amazon, selling them to her friends, basically asking all the authors I know in my genre to give free books to them. Maybe she's just trying to build the library for free. I don't know. I do know that I'm not doing that. So if you do have readers on your list who are asking for freebies, no, like for the most part, I just say no to that. You want readers on your list who are engaged and buy books and they like your books. So that was something I really focused on as well while I was doing all the other author work. And so kind of piggybacking on that, the next thing that I did was setting up newsletter swaps. And these are so huge. I'd heard about these before. I've talked about them briefly in Creative Collaborations, which is a book I wrote. I had an author named Jamie Davis talk about them, but it wasn't something I'd done because in nonfiction, this doesn't work very well. Nonfiction, how-to and self-help type books, a lot of times they are more competition for each other. Like you're not going to go buy 2 different books on email lists, or maybe you are, but you're not going to buy 3 or 4. You're not going to keep consistently reading books on email lists unless you're me, and I'm a nerd, so that's fine. But you are going to read, and if you're reading romance, you are going to read tons of romance books. Liking one author does not mean you're going to stop liking another. You read a lot. And so for these, you're going into, mostly this happens in Facebook groups, though you can use websites. Story Origin has a feature for this, where you can talk to other authors and connect with them. And you want to do this within your genre. Like I'm not going to send out horror books to my clean romance list. I'm connecting with other clean romance authors through Facebook groups. And you post basically a book cover. Sometimes you have the link ahead of time, sometimes not. And you set up the swaps. Usually I set them up the month beforehand. Again, I'll go into more detail in a separate post on this. But basically, you are sharing their books and they're sharing your books when it matters. It's not always like, I share on a Saturday, you share on a Saturday. It's like you pick the date that you want and other people sign up for that. And then you share what dates you have open and they'll pick those. And so you basically talk to the other authors and it's a way to network. And I've actually made some really good friends. And sometimes some of the people I'm closest with that I like their books a lot and my readers do too, we'll just email each other and we'll kind of consistently be sharing for each other even without using the group. So that's a huge thing. And then the last is paid promotions. And again, this is email. So if you'll notice, the last 3 things are all related to email. So these are really the marketing tactics. Publishing quickly, writing in a series, and writing in a hot trope. Those are all sort of writing-based activities and have to do with the craft. These 3 have to do with marketing, and they are all email related. You shouldn't be surprised. But the paid promotions are basically through other email newsletters that have grown followings of readers and readers who buy books and readers who buy books within a genre. These are not all created equal, and I can't wait to share with you my suggestions for how to decide which ones are good and bad for you. But basically, you're going to pay them, and they're going to share your book in their newsletter. And usually they will do this when your book is on sale. So you have to have a book marked down to do these for the most part. Some of them have full price, but if there's a book for free or a book for 99 cents and a book for $4.99, it's not going to really sell as well, which is why they do the discounts. So this is really great at launch or if you need a kickstart. I've been doing like one free book 1 day a month for the last couple months. I may not keep doing it, but typically once I do that, I'm paying for a couple promotions of a free book, which sounds silly. However, the next day after that, I typically triple or double my money of what I spent on the ads because that's my best sales day ever of the month usually is the day after a free promotion, both because some people didn't open the email and they go and they buy it anyway. And then also because of page reads, I'm getting people who picked up the book for free, through Kindle Unlimited. It's quote unquote free. And then I'm getting the money from those pages read the day after the promotion. And those people are going and getting my other books. And so that's something I found is that I sell a ton more books the day after a free promotion. So however you're doing it, it typically is with a discount, but you're paying these email services to email their lists. And sometimes the lists are like 100,000 people. BookBub is the biggest one. I actually just applied for one and I kind of hope I don't get it. If I do get it, it's like $600. It's crazy. So, that's a lot of money. Typically you make your money back, people say, but I'm not sure they're working as well as they did, but I haven't tried it. So I figured I would try it. Usually you get rejected, so I wasn't too worried. But basically, you want to look for book promotions within your genre. So if it's just one that sends out emails to like everybody, it probably isn't going to be as effective as if they have their list segmented. And usually they'll have different prices too, because one list might be more subscribers than another. So those paid promotions, those are really the main ways I've made money. To kind of sum those up again, I published quickly, I wrote in a series, I wrote in hot tropes, I consistently grew my newsletter so that I could email them, and I set up newsletter swaps with other authors, and then I paid for promotions with other email newsletters. I dabbled a little bit in AMS ads and Facebook ads, and that's really what I'm looking at this year because I want to scale up my income, and I think that the best way to do that is through effective advertising, spending money because I can't write any faster. Well, maybe I can, but I can't really write any faster. And as I grow, again, I sell more books every time, but I can't write more than one book a month. So what else can I do? I can continue to grow my audience, but also I can scale up through ads. And so that's what I'm looking forward to this year-end planning. So for you guys who want to find the links and want to see this visually, you can go to createifwriting.com/152. And I am excited to go into deeper dives on the specifics of some of these things like newsletter swaps, paying for promotions, which ones should you do, and how to grow your newsletter as an author. I did keep spreadsheets, even though I hate them, to kind of track things that worked and didn't work. I networked with people. It was hard, but honestly, it wasn't that hard. I feel like a lot of the things I did were really simple. I watched what other authors were doing. I listened to other people who were further ahead on the journey and making more money than me. And then I tested and tried things to continually hone my process. And obviously, if you listen to episode 151, I'm still testing things. Like I'm finding out a cover doesn't work and then switching it mid-launch. I think that it requires that. If you want to successfully self-publish on Amazon, you have to be willing to do some work. Again, it's not that hard work. I think people get intimidated and think they can't do it, but you can. You really can. It's just about finding trustworthy sources to follow. And so for me, that happened in Facebook groups. And I picked a few other clean romance authors who were doing well. And I wasn't trying to copy what they're doing. I was writing my own books, but I did follow what they were doing in terms of marketing. I watched what they did. I watched where their books were. And I tried to emulate that same kind of strategy for my own books, and it worked really well. So I hope that this is really helpful for you. Don't get overwhelmed. Again, you can do this. And I want to challenge you to get the roadblocks out of your mind, whether that's a roadblock to thinking you can write fast, a roadblock to thinking that you can do this yourself, or a roadblock to thinking that the space is too crowded and you can't do it anymore. I feel like what I did in the last year is a testament to the fact that it absolutely can be done and you can do this. So if you want to connect with the community, you can find the free Facebook community by going to createifwriting.com/community. And if you want to hear from me weekly with resources, tips, tools, tricks, and more, you can go to createifwriting.com/quick fix to get on my email list. I'm super excited that you were here listening, and I hope that you come back, tell a friend, stick around, and go out and create content that you love and serve your people well.